you go, you study economics and finance at the best university in Africa. You go and you get your CFA level 1, which you did. You'd come back and people would be hunting for you. I came back and that was not the case. I think that's a big thing for a lot of men, where you've been hit so many times, you want to give up. Because working for corporate, it doesn't matter if you kill yourself. You'll be paid your salary. Say they want you to leave, you'll go and you'll be replaced. But in family business, the work you put in on a monthly basis is building towards something larger.
If you ever got a girl that's non-Christian, it could be any other religion or any other faith, would you kick it? I told her, the child is easy to get. It's the wife that's harder.
We can solve that problem quickly,
the child we can solve. It's the wife we can't solve. Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of the Just to Kick It Is a Blessing podcast, the podcast where it's all about time, where we teach, inspire, motivate, and entertain through the art of storytelling. Today, I have a special guest in studio with me, and let me tell you a bit about this guest. So I recently met him at one of our friends' birthday, and we had this brief conversation, and as soon as we had this conversation, I knew that I needed to have him in the studio with me. I knew that I needed to have him on the podcast, and I'm so glad that he has honored my invite and is here today with us. So without further ado, I will let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Tupac. A bit about myself. If I was to condense it into 4 key themes, I think I'll describe myself as a Christian first.
Yes.
An entrepreneur, a fitness fanatic, and finally an introvert with extroverted tendencies.
Okay. So before we even get into what we're here to speak about today, how's your upbringing been? How's that influenced the person that is seated on this chair today?
Okay. I think, as you've talked about quite a bit on this channel,
Yes.
The family you're born into plays a huge role into the person you turn out to be.
Yeah.
So I think my parents have played a large role. I was brought up in a Christian household, which I'm very thankful for. I then went to a small international Christian school, which also helped shape my values as I was growing up. Then went on to UCT, where I studied economics and finance, and then eventually came back to work in finance.
Okay. Tell us about this, small Christian school. Yeah.
So it's actually called West Nairobi.
Okay.
Interesting fact, my graduating class were 15 people. So you definitely got to know everyone.
Yes.
The other issue with that, though, being an international school and with such few people, everyone went across the globe. So coming back after university, finding friends was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
But excellent school. The level of attention you were able to get. Actually, in my AP calculus class, we were only 5 students with 1 teacher. So the ratio was quite good.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned you went to UCT. How was that university experience, and what can you tell us about that whole experience?
So I think UCT is unique in that it gives you the experience of going abroad. Say you're going to the UK or the States, but it's still within an African context, which I really appreciated. It also allowed me to be exposed to a lot of other Africans who have their heads on straight, brilliant people who are solving real problems. So it also made me very passionate about seeing Africa grow. And that's, I think, something I'd want to do in the long run. That may be one of my long-term goals.
Yeah. Maybe for someone listening to this, maybe you can tell them what UCT stands for in full.
Yes, UCT stands for University of Cape Town.
University of Cape Town. Wow. I see South Africa seems to have a lot of these really important universities. Like even the other day I spoke to someone who went to, is it called ALA?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
ALA.
What do you think they're doing different from Kenya,
So ALA, that's actually, I think, high school.
Yeah, high school.
But they are very intentional about their teaching, or at least while I was there. I can only speak for that. But UCT was good in that, given it has the reputation of being the best university in Africa, it wants to maintain that. So their lecturers consistently go get training from some of the top universities in the world and bring that here. I low-key feel like it is harder than some of the other universities, but that might just be personal.
Yeah. And when you're in uni, what do you think are some of the particular challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome some of these challenges? Going to a different uni out of the country, what do you think?
Okay, I think the biggest challenge that I faced was switching from the American system to the British curriculum. There, it's more exam based. So at the end of the year, you'll have one large exam that counts for 40% of your grade, versus the American system where it's more project based. So that was a key challenge. I remember actually my first test, I got 30%.
Yeah.
It was okay because I think most people also got around that mark.
Yeah.
But it was a real wake up call for like, okay, things here aren't the same. You're not going to pass with the same level of effort you had for high school. University is a completely different game.
Okay. Yeah. And now that you talked about some of those challenges, how do you think that whole experience in that specific uni, UCT, has influenced your personal beliefs?
I think not UCT as much, but more Cape Town.
Yes.
So Cape Town is the liberal capital of Africa.
Yeah.
And being in that space, especially after coming from such a conservative upbringing, it forces you to make a choice. You're exposed to so many things, and you have to pick a side. Either you're going to invest and go full force in your faith, or if you don't, then you're just going to coast. Yeah. So while I was in Cape Town, actually, I think that was one of the pivotal moments in my relationship with God, where I started to invest personally. It wasn't because my parents wanted me to go to church. There's no one there following up. If I didn't go to church, I didn't go to church. But I joined a really good church in Cape Town. That's actually where I got baptized. I also was involved in youth ministry, which also really helped affirm my beliefs and why I believed what I believed.
It's interesting to sit with someone who has gone abroad and can say all these things. Most of the people who I talk about their university experiences, I wouldn't want to even mention them on this podcast, but now transitioning back home, how did that feel, what were some of the challenges or highlights you faced transitioning back home?
Okay. I think there were two key challenges. First, coming back, as I mentioned earlier, I went to a very small high school, and most of the people went everywhere across the world.
Yeah.
So coming back, there weren't a lot of people who I had close friendships with. And then you'd also spent 4 years away where you're investing in friendships that you're going to leave there effectively. You might still be in touch, but they're not as present when you're back in Kenya. So that was the first challenge. The second was finding a job.
Yeah.
I'd actually been told when I was in UCT, like, if you go, you study economics and finance at the best university in Africa, you go and you get your CFA level 1, which you did, you'd come back and people would be hunting for you. I came back and that was not the case. I think during the time, there was a bit of a lull in the economy, so people weren't hiring. So it actually took me about 10 months with all my connections, everything. It took me about 10 months of grinding before I actually found something that I liked, which was a real eye-opening experience for me. Yeah.
When you say 10 months, I know people give up even sooner than 10 months. What do you think kept pushing you towards still continuing to apply even though there was failure?
Yeah, I think having been exposed to failure at UCT, it wasn't something I was unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
It also taught me to push through it. I also tend to look for the next thing to latch onto. So I'd get a rejection today, but then I'd wait, and soon I'd hear back from a company, even if it's just for an interview. I'd then use that and place my hope there. So it was almost part of that like we move mentality, which can be a good thing, but also has its downsides. Yeah. So that's, I think, what kept me going during that time.
Okay. And to someone that's, or to a man that's listening, especially to the men, because even the other day I was telling these guys on the podcast that I sent out an opportunity for a job, and I was kind of disappointed about the men's applications. And me, I'm a pro man, I really want to see men succeed because I'm seeing they're really struggling. The boy child is really struggling within the society. What are you telling them, and what do you think can help them stand out, before we get to your career?
I think part of it would just be bold, apply for jobs you might not even be qualified for, but just apply. Don't allow yourself to sit and get stuck. I think that's a big thing for a lot of men, where you've been hit so many times, you want to give up. So just seeing and finding ways to get that hope back up, I think would be something that's important.
So yeah, man, don't give up, try. And also I think for me, what I saw when I was receiving applications was, I think the women are putting more time into the application.
The quality of the
So the quality of the application that you're getting from the women compared to the men really stands out, And I think even you'd know the first thing that stands out to someone is presentation.
100%.
Presentation causes biases.
Yes.
So if someone doesn't like your presentation, they're not going through
before you even get to the content of what it's saying, you look at the page.
Yes.
Actually, one of the things I learned while doing those 10 months of grafting is you have to be very specific. You have to have at least key points on your CV, have one page, make it very succinct, make it easy for the person who's reading it to get it out to the key points, and then don't have small errors like spelling mistakes or formatting errors. Those are things that need to be a thing of the past.
Yeah. So at least now the people that listen to this have gotten some application advice.
Yeah.
And what do you think about, or tell us how's your career unfolded now that from uni, coming back here, applying for the job, how was that job and what are you doing now, in terms of your career?
Okay. So my journey's been, I think, quite interesting. I've always thought of myself as a very structured person. So the schooling days, that was easy. I knew do well in high school, get into university, do well in university, get a good job, and then climb the ladder.
Yeah.
So I did that up until I came back. I joined a management consulting firm. I worked there for about 3 years, then transitioned into entrepreneurship. That for me was a real challenge. Going from a place where everything is cut out. In corporate, you know what the next 2, 3, 4 steps look like. In entrepreneurship, you're the one having to define what success looks like for you. Is it making X amount of money? Is it having X amount of partnerships, seeing your business grow by this percentage? So it's been an interesting journey. I think one I'm still trying to figure out, but I've also been blessed to have good people around me that help when I need it. It's been really good.
Like even as an entrepreneur seated across you, I think it's the toughest journey, but I think it's the most, rewarding journey,
Yeah.
And some days you think it's structured or you find structure.
Yes.
And then there's a fire that you need to turn off for like four working days,
No, literally putting out fires is part of the job. Like you have to understand
Yeah.
that there'll be days where you thought you had a plan for the week. It's like, okay, so I'll have achieved X, Y, and Z by the end. But Monday morning, you're hit with a phone call that just throws off that entire plan.
Yeah.
So making sure that you've allocated enough allowance in that.
That problem.
Yeah. I think I was also somewhat fortunate because as I joined entrepreneurship, I was joining a family business that already had some structure. That's where I also got to understand what the differences were. I also got to implement some of the structure that I'd learned in corporate, bring it to the business. And then now I'm getting an opportunity to demonstrate that for myself.
Yeah.
I recently purchased a business about
Congratulations.
2-3 weeks ago. Thanks. Where I'm now getting to express my creative side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before I even get to what we want, you said family business. The other day I was having this talk with my dad and we were talking about how he sees or a lot of family businesses are dying because children are not interested in them.
Yep.
Or children have flown across the world and are not bothered about coming back. What do you think and how was your journey or how was that experience working in family business?
So for me, I think it's an interesting one because I also didn't see myself joining family business that early.
Same.
In my mind, it had been sour. Let me come work in corporate for 5 years, and then eventually I'll find ways to help out with the family business while still doing my corporate thing. But after about 3 years, there was a bit of a transition, and I was requested to join. So I came in with the idea of, okay, let me help sort things out for like 6 months, and then I'll go back into corporate. I joined, and what caused me to stay was understanding the opportunity family business gives you to build generational wealth. And I think that's something that a lot of young people are failing to understand. It doesn't matter how much you're being paid. Most times the family business might not be as flashy or as exciting as the corporate job.
Sometimes you're not even paid on time.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that.
You have to understand because you know your boss.
Yeah, you know your boss. You know your boss.
But
and then he tells you you're not paying rent. Or sometimes,
yeah. But as you build, the effort you're putting in to get that salary at the end of the month, because working for corporate, it doesn't matter if you kill yourself. You'll be paid your salo. Say they want you to leave, you'll go and you'll be replaced. But in family business, the work you put in on a monthly basis is building towards something larger. So these 5 years you spend investing, you being a family member, benefit tenfold. So that's been something that convinced me to stay, actually.
And I think I agree with you. When I look at some of these Indians that we even think live these flashy lifestyles,
Yeah.
it's not that their dad is the one who made the money. It's their great granddad.
It's multi-generational.
It's and like what you said, that thing for compound interest. So that if you're owning a business for 100, 200 years, there's no way. But I also think maybe it's because a lot of us are short-minded. We want to be the flashy guy instead of understanding it doesn't have to be for us. It could be for our kids' kids. Yeah.
You want that instant gratification where you're the one who's reaping the benefits, which you do get from corporate, but I think that's also how it traps you.
Yeah.
Because what you'll do, especially with some of these jobs, they'll pay you really good amounts that will have it to be very difficult to transition. I actually think had I stayed for those 5 years, I don't think I'd have been able to come into the family business as I did.
Yeah. I think even the other day, I took my dad to visit some factories, and they were telling us this factory, they've been doing this business for like more than 100 years.
Yeah. And it's not flashy things. It's like simple. You do nails.
Nails.
But if you do nails really well,
Yes.
like you can have a multi-million-dollar business.
Yes.
Just on that. Yeah.
No. And I understand what you're saying. And I think it's important for, especially if there's any parents that listen to this, to start introducing their children to businesses or to the family business, at a very young age.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this story of this chemist that we used to go to, and the lady who owns it is an Indian. They've owned it, I think, for like more than 65 years or something.
Yeah.
And her daughter, I think, was in a top Ivy League school. But during holidays, she was there working on the business. And I was actually convinced that she would come back and still work on the business. I think you also come up with a new way to look at things compared to how your parents see things.
True.
Yeah.
What you also do need, which is what I'd also emphasize, allow your kids to also go and get some external experience and then come and add that to the business.
Okay.
Because you can also get into a loop of doing things the same way. But have people go and learn from industry leaders, send them to the best universities, but with an understanding that you're taking that learning and bringing it back home. It's not you're going to study in the UK to go and work in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you introduced yourself, you talked about I am an introvert with extrovert tendencies. So maybe you can actually first explain to us that before I get to my next question.
Okay. So when I say I'm an introvert, I'm referring to how I gain my energy. I think the line between introverts and extroverts can sometimes be confused because there'll be certain circles where I'm very chatty, others where I'm quiet. But for me, I'd say spending prolonged periods of time, say you go on a weekend away with your boys or with friends, I'll find myself needing to isolate for be it even 30 minutes or something, just recharge and then come back. So I think that's how I define being an introvert. Then the extroverted tendencies, probably because I go out once in a while.
Yeah.
And people will see you out, so they assume you have X personality, but in reality, I'm actually a lot more reserved.
How do you think, actually, yeah, before even we get to that, how do you think you learned that about yourself? And to someone listening to this, how do you think they can learn that about themselves?
Okay, I think there's a lot of tools.
Yeah.
One would be the Myers-Briggs test. It's a personality test. And I'm actually an ISTJ.
Yeah.
Do you know your...
I think I am ENPFT or something like
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do that. Just see. Obviously, it will also change depending on your mood, but it can be a good indicator. And then most times you'll know. If by the time you're left chilling with a lot of people, you're feeling energized, you're most likely an extrovert. Or if you're left feeling somewhat drained, then you probably have some introvert in you. Yeah.
No, the interesting thing about some of those tools is like if you actually answer them honestly, they give you honest.
Yes.
They give you actually an honest overview of yourself. It might not be 100% accurate, but a lot of it will be accurate because I remember the other day on the dinner table, I forced everyone in my family to do one.
Yeah.
Yes. And now we were reading the comments and people were so shy, They're like, oh my God, this explains me. And then, no, but deep inside it's like, okay, yeah, the truth is, it actually explains me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people think that entrepreneurship might be an easy path to take, and so how do you balance between your personal life, your work life, and your faith?
Okay. I think finding structure
Yeah.
is something you have to do, especially especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. Structure your time and be intentional about it. So for me, my work day starts at 9. If you call me before 9, and it's about work, unless it's like my dad or something, I'm not going to pick up. And then I try and close my work day by 7. Obviously, there's days that will vary, but by and large, that tends to be the thing. So if I want to go to gym in the morning, I have that freedom to do so. If I want to go to gym in the afternoon, I also have my free time, so that you're also not just work. You end up burning out a lot faster if you don't structure your time and pace yourself. And then you also mentioned faith.
Yes.
So in terms of also balancing that, it can be as simple as having a quiet time in the morning, or on days where maybe you're rushing, you have a meeting. Spend time, listen to a podcast or Christian podcast or small sermonette in the car while you drive. And then even before you go to bed, maybe just spend some time reading the Bible. It pays out in the long run. That's what I can tell you.
It's very interesting to hear, a young man like you, come openly and, speak about faith and speak about his relationship with God. So how's that journey been for you, and, how's it evolved over time, and how do you see it evolving further?
Okay, so, yeah, my journey has been somewhat dynamic. I don't think it's been perfect the whole way. But what I will say, it's been consistent in that I know I'm a Christian, and those are ideals that I hold. And come what may, God willing and God allowing, that would be something that I'd want to see continue. There have been phases, though, where I've gone through slight lulls in my faith. Not where I've let go of it, but I just know I'm not investing as much as I should. So like right now, I might be happy about the sermons I'm watching on a regular basis, reading the Bible, but I also know I haven't been as consistent as I'd like to be with church.
Yeah.
So we're going to church tomorrow.
No. I think we have to look for a time, because even me, I think I started the year off very well, going to church, and then I don't know what happened, some confusion in life and everything. But like I said, I think even for me as a Christian, I think church is really a really nice place, especially if you find the right church, with the right people,
Yeah.
And, even I think my previous podcast with Chika, I was telling people, like, your faith will come to you when you actually need it, because I know there's some young people telling, listening to this, but like, no, man, I want to still be a trapper and everything, Yeah, but what's your advice to them? Because I gave my advice to them. What's your advice to, that young guy listening to this, about faith?
Yeah, I think what faith will allow you to do is also set boundaries, like in terms of how far you'll go. So, drinking might not be a sin, but getting drunk is. So then you balance, even in terms of the way you drink. Well, that's one of the things for me. At least my overarching philosophy is I wouldn't want there to be anything that controls me. So be it the way I drink. There'll be times I'll be going out a bit more than I should be. But even the way I conduct myself when I'm out, I think that should be something I'd want to tie in and not be, unbound.
Yeah. So how do you think, because, you've really spoken about faith. So how do you think faith has influenced the decisions you make both in your personal and professional life?
So in my personal life, I think it would have to do with, say, the person I choose to date, who I'm in a relationship with. You'd want to ensure that the person you're with long-term shares the same ideals. In business, it has to do with how you conduct yourself. There'll be certain deals you don't do because it conflicts with what God says, And I can't say I've always been perfect. Like I said, I think on the larger decisions, God does play more of an active role in terms of, say I can see I'm going to be making a decision on who I enter a relationship with or a job I take. I'll seek God more actively for that. But where I'd want to get to is where I'm coming to him with even the smaller decisions. Let it not be a thing for, when there's a big decision to be made, that's when I'm running to God. I'd want it to be a point where, for the small things, even on a day-to-day basis, he's the first point I turn to.
Okay. So recently we introduced a new segment into the podcast, and it's called Can You Kick It? And basically, Can You Kick It is where I ask you a scenario about a situation and just want to hear your answer about it. And it's random. It's to make it at least a little less serious, So you've really spoken about faith a lot and, being a Christian.
Yeah.
So if you ever got a girl that's non-Christian, it could be any other religion or any other faith, would you kick it?
Actually, there's some empirical evidence that would suggest I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of my non-negotiables.
Yeah.
When looking for a partner, you want someone who shares the same ideals, and also not just a, eventual wife, even someone you're going to be relating with. You'd want to know that is this a person you could introduce to your parents? Should something happen, and they were to be the mother of your child, would you be okay with that person being the mother of your child? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So that I think would also be one thing I'd say. And as much as they are lovely women from all other religions or who might not necessarily share the same beliefs, I don't think I would move things forward with someone who doesn't share my faith.
No, I think what you said makes sense. I think one of the key values that supports relationships or long-lasting relationships is shared beliefs and values. Where there's lack of shared beliefs or shared values, or there's a discrepancy, there's a lot of tension that, of course, will be caused by that. So, yeah.
And maybe also just to add there.
Yes.
So to a lot of young men, first I'd propose and suggest going celibate and being abstinent. But if you're not, just word of wisdom, the person that you're sleeping with, say something were to happen and they get pregnant, would you be happy with that decision? Because stranger things have happened. So just be aware of what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good question for you guys as men, as the audience. The person that you're with right now, or you're sleeping with, are you happy to introduce them to your parents?
Yes.
Or are you even happy to marry them? Think about that. But yeah, back to the podcast. A lot of things that I see that affect men is one of them is stress and anxiety. And I'm sure you as an entrepreneur, you've gone through your fair share of stress and anxiety, but how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. I think the first step there is recognizing that you actually are dealing with stress and anxiety. For me, for a long time, I had this mentality for we move. Even when I was searching for a job. I could tell I was stressed, but I didn't really pay it any mind until it started to manifest itself physically, where I found out I had like high blood pressure at 25. So for that, for me, it was a wake-up call. Because I'm a fit guy, I'm active. I didn't think that was something I had to be concerned about. So, yeah, dealing with stress and anxiety is something that you do need to be very intentional about. I'd actually suggest going for therapy, even if it's a few sessions, just to be able to understand yourself a bit better and pinpoint what is causing those issues so that you can address them first. Yeah.
You've mentioned, I think, now at least thrice or twice in this podcast, that we move it mentality.
Yes.
What exactly is that we move it mentality? And how do you think it affected you and is affecting other men?
So I think as men, you're told, vumilia, push through. And it's something I upheld, don't show emotion. I think the real danger there is, especially if these things, say the stresses and anxieties, go unaddressed for a long period of time, it can now have those larger impacts. And, where there might not be a hitting rock bottom moment, these slow burns can also be just as detrimental, if not more. A good example would be a car with a slow puncture. If you continue driving on that flat tire, over time, you're going to do more damage to the vehicle versus had you noticed there's a puncture, stopped, addressed it, and then moved forward.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's the thing that I've also noticed about men, and I think that's why when you look around the world, the suicide rates amongst men seem to be very high. I feel like with women, and maybe we can get a woman one day on the channel to tell us, they really deal with these problems. Like if today a woman is left by her boyfriend or something, they'll all gather up, cry in a house, laugh, drink wine, say all the shit things about him.
Yeah.
But for us men, I think it's a little bit different, What do
you tend to isolate.
Yeah.
Especially when a man is going through it, and you can tell he's going through it, is when you'll see him isolating a bit more, which is something that needs to change.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things that can be done. I think we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that isolation is never a good thing. You might feel like you need to because you might not want to see your boys.
Yeah.
You might not want your boys to see you cry. You know?
Yeah.
But that might also just be a question of who are the boys you have around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you said, that isolation thing, as soon as someone notices that their friend is isolating, they should get to the root of that problem. And the root should not be tequila. Because I think for a lot of people, that's what they think the root is. Bro, just take 3 shots, you'll forget about her. You'll be easy.
We move.
You know?
Yeah.
And you see, again, what you said, we move mentality, you know? Yeah, so tell us about now realizing about hypertension and everything. How did that change your life? And, you know, what did it do for you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it was a wake-up call. One, just be intentional about what's going on internally. Let me also understand my emotions a bit better. I went to therapy. It was useful, let me not lie. Some of the things were a bit airy-fairy, but I think the key takeaways were useful. And the ability to question my emotions, or basically dig deeper than surface level for what it is you're experiencing. Or being able to pinpoint the root cause of that stress and anxiety was something that was good for me.
No, I think even the other day, I think I was listening to a podcast and the guy was saying, therapy doesn't have to be something you go to when, you know, something is wrong. Yeah. It's not that you always take your car to the garage when something is wrong, you know. Sometimes service...
No maintenance, you know, kidogo.
Yeah, service has reached, but you've taken the car and it's moving perfectly.
Yes.
But just because there's that car number, and he was relating it to that, whenever you reach that point, you should always make sure you keep yourself
in check.
In check. And I think therapy is such a beautiful thing. I know a lot of people who have gone to therapy. I've been to therapy as well. And I think it's so nice, you know, like, but I also think that as friends and as family, we should also create that therapeutic environment for someone, you know, to speak to. You've spoken a lot about faith. Yeah. So another thing is, as a man, what do you think are other pillars of life?
Okay. So my personal philosophy, I think there's 5 key pillars that as a man you need to handle in order to have like a healthy and happy life. So first, obviously, would be God. The second would be women, relationships, that or your romantic relationship, because the woman you choose to be with will have a huge impact in how your life turns out. The second would be purpose, money. I think, unfortunately, as a man, your value to some extent is also defined by the size of your bank account. So it's something you have to figure out. At the very least, you need to be able to provide one for yourself and eventually, God willing, for your family. So just seeing how to set those things in place. The third would be health and fitness. I think it's necessary. It doesn't matter how much money you make. If you're not healthy, you're not going to be able to enjoy it. And then what was the final one? I think there was one more. So I've said faith.
Yeah.
Relationships. Oh, then the last one is friendships. Friendships / family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are the people who are around you. And your 5 closest friends will shape the person you turn into as well. So investing in those, I think it's something that's very essential.
Before we get to the pitfalls of each of those and why men might not succeed in some of those or what failures you might see in most of those is, the interesting one is the one that you said about, you know, the bank account. And, you know, the other day I was doing research with my dad on a podcast. And one of the things he came about, and he was like, you know, a man is a provider.
Yeah.
And when we were looking about what the Bible says about provision, there's a verse we came across, and it was said, better a man that does not believe in God than a man that does not provide for his family.
Crazy.
And I was like, that is such a crazy statement from the Bible.
Yes.
You know, and the Bible is full of a lot of life lessons or real life lessons that we see that are still applicable today.
Yeah.
You know, so it was very crazy to see that, you know. But yeah, what are some of the pitfalls you see in each of those?
Okay, so I think with women, the obvious one is sex. I think a lot of men end up chasing after that. What it does, it also will devalue women in your mind. It will also make it harder for you to be in a happy long-term relationship. Because, you know, guys have this mentality for, okay, so I'll get married when I've gotten it out of my system. So when I'm like 35.
Yeah.
But I've done all I needed to do.
Yeah.
But what you're also doing is you're training your body to respond to diversity.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be going after I don't know how many women and then expecting to be with one for the rest of your life. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So that's on women.
Yeah.
I think the other one would be alcohol, stroke drugs. I think those are different. I mean, they are
Now the-
pacifiers.
That's in regards to health.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's in regards to health. Those are things, it's forms of escapism.
Yeah.
And that can be an indicator that you're going through a slow burn or that you're dealing with, there's something that you're not dealing with. You know, you find yourself maybe going out more than you used to or drinking more than you would regularly. So that would be in regards to health. Then,
There's faith.
yeah, in terms of faith, it would just be now in terms of the level of investment you're putting into it.
Yeah.
Then with friends and family, it would be if you see yourself isolating, removing yourself from the people who care about you, who would be able to speak into your life and call out patterns that are unhealthy. If you see yourself isolating from them, then that might be a signal that may be a problem.
You've talked about forms of escapism. Yeah, forms of escapism.
Yeah.
What do you think as men we are using as forms of escapism that are really destroying us or really confusing us or, you know, one way hindering us?
Yeah, I think part of what I said, so that would be
Alcohol.
alcohol, drugs, women. The other one could also be social media.
Yeah.
You know, you see your screen time has just been increasing. You're checked out. It doesn't matter if you're still high functioning. You might still be getting what you need done, but you're looking to distract yourself. You don't want to be alone with your thoughts. Yeah.
I think for me to add on to what you said, I think also another one is sports. I think
And money.
yeah, sports, money, and games.
Yes.
Yes, if you look at the percentage of women that are invested in sports and games, so like PlayStation,
Yes.
it's very little. So it's just there to keep on distracting you. FIFA comes out today, the next one comes out tomorrow, the next one comes out tomorrow. Olympics ends today. Premier League starts tomorrow. You know.
Yes.
So I think it's permanently distracting us men from really understanding the value that we provide to this society.
Yeah. And what's going on a deeper level.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about escapisms, I think for you, what do you think you define a man as?
I think one thing that has also helped me define what I'd like to look at.
As a man.
Say I'm 60 and I'm looking back at my life. One text that has really helped me would be 1 Timothy chapter 3.
Yes.
I think similar to how women have Proverbs 31, for men, 1 Timothy verse 3 talks about the requirements of being a deacon in the church. And I think it's a really fundamental text. It talks about things like being the husband to one wife, being temperate, being able to be self-controlled, have emotions in check, not given to drunkenness and other things. And I think those are things I'd actually encourage all listeners to go and read it for themselves.
Yes.
It would be something that is eye-opening. And it's a good way to check yourself.
Man.
Yeah.
Just tell them the verse again.
1 Timothy chapter 3.
And for those who don't have a Bible, chat can do it for you perfectly. You don't have to worry about that, you know. Yeah, so I think one of the things you've talked about is your journey of growth, yes, and how important has that journey been in regards to the people you've had around you, not just your family and your friends, but your mentors.
So having mentors is something that's also essential. I'm fortunate in that I grew up with a father who was present and has actually played an active role in my life. So he's an automatic mentor. But taking that one step further, it's good to have a good relationship with your father. But there's certain things you might not necessarily be able to or willing to talk to your father about. So seeking out men who are older. I actually have a mentor called Thagana. He's about 10 years older than me. So he's unique in that he's gotten to experience a lot of the similar challenges I've experienced that my dad might not have. And I admire the way he's choosing to live his life.
Yeah.
He says about his faith, how he treats his wife and our daughter. There's a lot that he does well that I admire, which is why I reached out to him and he was gracious enough. And so we've been meeting on a monthly basis, or at least having a conversation where we have that accountability. I think accountability as a man is something that's also very important.
Yeah. How do you tell, or what do you tell someone listening to this on how to find a mentor? You know, maybe you are fortunate enough to find yours in church, but maybe someone else doesn't go to church or doesn't go to such locations. How do they look for a mentor? What's your advice to finding a mentor?
Okay. I think there'd be two ways to approach this. One, you can go virtually. So there's speakers that I admire, such as Jordan Peterson, who talk about real things and who are free thinkers. So that's virtual. You can learn from a lot. You can learn a lot from people even online. The second would be, the spaces you're in. If you play football once a week, look for men that you respect. If you go to church or if you work, you'd be surprised how many older men are willing to give back to those who are younger than them. All you need to do is approach, and then just be real. Tell them what it is you're looking to gain, be it a career mentor or even like one for personal life. Yeah.
Now, one of the things I think you mentioned to me before the podcast was you have this thing that you've been doing called a video diary.
Yes.
You know, okay, for me, I think I do a journal, but tell us, what's this video library and what effect has it had on your life? When did you start it? And,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I actually started in 2013, which was more than 10 years ago. Crazy. But it's basically a way to have checkpoints in life. So every 6 months, I'll set aside maybe 10, 20 minutes, make a quick video. I'm not trying to make crazy content. These videos no one will see except for my children and wife, God willing. And I make videos, one, expressing what I've gone through in the last 6 months. So it's like a checkpoint in life. Things that I'm struggling with at the time and things that I'd hope for. So it's really useful in that, one, you're able to look back at some of the challenges you were facing 10 years ago and see how comical they are now. It's an important way
The girl who refused to take you to prom.
And that for you was the biggest thing. Like, you're in pain.
It was the end of your life.
But now you look back and you see how even time has changed, you've grown. And it's really encouraging also to see God come and answer some of the prayers you had at that point. Another thing I like to do is speak directly to my kids. I don't have any kids right now. But I'd want to eventually, and I'd be able to speak to them at that point with the wisdom I have and allow them to see dad as this young guy as well. Let him know I'm not just this old man who's always had his stuff figured out. It can be very encouraging for children, I believe.
Well, I think for me personally, I've been journaling, but I think that's the next thing I'm adding onto my list, I think doing that, because a journal, yes, it tells a story, but I think the video tells a story 100 times more, especially if you're there and you're speaking to, your child and you're like, today was a bad day, the deal didn't come through or what, or today, I can't imagine if I started doing it 10 years ago, I'd be like, today was a bad day, I failed the cut, here's the cut paper,
things like that.
I think it can be very encouraging to see that as a child growing up, and it's really teaching them essential life lessons.
And then them also getting to see the final picture, because most times,
you don't see what your parent has been through.
Yeah, you don't see what your parents have been through. You don't necessarily even see them as being human beings. To some extent, you feel like they're these perfect entities that have everything figured out. And I think the video diary would allow kids to see their parents as people much sooner.
I think that's interesting, because a lot of us, the only thing we probably know about our parents is this story that they claim they were number one in school.
Literally.
Yes? Or they walked barefoot to school.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. They grew up in shags, herding cows, things like that.
Yeah. And maybe you go back to shags where they grew up and you see how they grew up. But other than that, there's no real life lessons into their life,
Yeah.
And I think now that you say that, I think for everyone listening there, man or woman, I think that is such a beautiful thing to do. And it doesn't have to be every day. It can be once a month or once every 6 months, or at the start and at the end of the year. You can tell them what you expected this year and how the year went. But I think it can be such a profound thing to change the relationship a parent has, with their child. Yeah. You've mentioned something as well. You said, my father, I was happy he was present in my life, and you've talked about family business. So I'm assuming that you and your father might have a good relationship. And how important is the relationship between a father and his son? And, tell us about your relationship as well.
Honestly, I think it's invaluable, obviously with both parents, but especially for a father and a son, they say you're most likely to turn out like your father. And, for some people, they might consider that a blessing. Others might consider that a curse. So I think I'm fortunate in that, say when I'm 60, were I to be like my dad, I'd consider it a blessing. And I think it's definitely important. It's also very important for fathers to continue to invest in their sons and children's lives as they grow older. Because sometimes, after you've paid your school fees and your kid is out of the house, you feel like your responsibilities are done, but they really aren't.
That's in fact where it starts even.
That's where it starts. And actually one of the things we do with my dad that's been really useful, and also just developing that relationship further, is having Bible study once a week, on Thursdays, sometimes once every 2 weeks. But we then invite other guys who also then get to experience that as well.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to continue to, one, invest in your faith and also invest in your relationship with your father.
I think it's important. And I think also there's a lot of people might be listening to this that might not have a father for one reason or another. Yeah. But to the parent that's listening to this, I think the best thing is to help your son find a father figure. Yes, it doesn't have to be a biological father, but choose someone that's going to also be maybe constant in their life, not someone that will come and go.
An uncle, a family member, or a family friend, someone who you see the way they live their life, and you'd want that for your son and or daughter, and then go and actively take that role. It doesn't mean because, their biological father wasn't around that they're doomed or whatever. Be a bit proactive and seek out someone.
I think also the thing I've liked that you said is you need to also find the son or the person at something that they enjoy doing or something that will bring you closer together.
Yes.
See, I think for me, what I see with my dad is he tends to spend time with us based on our interests. So we're already more interested in spending the time together.
Yeah.
He's always asking me, who are you having next as a guest on your podcast? What are you talking about? How can I help?
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're just playing a simple game of golf, and I feel like that's what's really helped us build this relationship together,
Yeah, I've also been fortunate in that I'm also working with my parents,
Yes.
so I'm also getting to see them in different lights. It was interesting. When I joined the business, my dad actually took a bit more of a step back to also allow me to spread my wings, figure out things for myself, which I really valued and appreciated. Because I think that could also be a barrier for a lot of people entering family business, where you come in and your father's just like, okay, this is how it's done. You have to be in the office at 8 a.m. What are you doing? It doesn't matter. You have to be there at 8 a.m. Yeah.
I think even me, because I also worked in family business before, now I'm trying to get one of my projects off the ground, is my father was also like that. He wasn't too, hands-on.
Micromanaging.
Told me, okay, you do this. And also willing to learn.
Yes.
I know some people, I think it's very hard for their fathers to listen to them,
Yeah.
But you don't give up. Continue trying, I think one of the key topics that has come out a lot in this conversation is family. And, family. What role what's the importance of family for you,
Yeah.
And why do you think it's important to have family?
I think your family, and especially your siblings, are people who've gotten to see you through all phases of life. So they have a unique window into your life and can also call certain things out that they've been seeing over time. Your spouse will be someone you've known for 50 years, should God give you long life, but your siblings will be there from the time you were born till the time you die.
Yeah.
So they're people who you should definitely invest. And your parents at some point will go, but you'll still be left with your siblings. So it's very important not just to invest in a relationship with your parents, but also with the siblings and the people you're born with.
Okay. You've also talked a lot about marriage and child. I won't ask you when you plan to get married,
But sooner than you think.
Yeah? But it's sooner than you think. Amen. I'm tired of going for birthdays alone. I'm ready to go for a wedding, But why do you think a lot of men are getting married late? Our fathers tell us, I was married by 25,
Yeah.
A lot of us, men, you're over 25. So why do you think a lot of us are getting married late,
I think there's a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
Part of it is fair. Like you've been told as a man, you need to make X amount by the time you're getting married. And the salaries or how much you're earning currently compared to what maybe our parents were earning back in the day, you'd need to work for longer to be able to now sustain a family by yourself. So that could be a factor. The other one, though, I think is a bit negative, where like I said, men want to experience life.
Yeah.
They want to play the field, and then once they're done playing the field, then settle down, which I think is flawed. But now just finding a way, and then also not seeing marriage as this negative thing. I think it's quite unfortunate. A lot of young men haven't seen a positive example of what marriage looks like. So for them, it's this negative thing. It's not this beautiful thing where you're coming with someone and building an empire together. It's almost I'm being locked down. This ball and chain that is coming to steal my joy.
I can't go out with the boys anymore.
Things like that. Or I can't go and sip on a weekend.
Oh, no, you can't.
Because the miss is going to be vexed.
Yeah. I no. It's true. And I think even for me, when I see it or when I look at it, is on a personal experience, I think a lot of us lose good partners because we always think that it'll be the right time. I don't think there's anything like the right time, but there is the right person.
Yes.
And you know when you have the right person.
True. That would also be something that I'd encourage a lot of men to be able to distinguish. Know when you have a quality woman, and don't assume that caliber of woman is going to come around so regularly. So don't be so quick to be like, I'll sort it out later. Yeah.
No, I had a conversation a while back with one of my friend's dads. Yeah, we actually have now some of those conversations that I can't have with my dad, and he was like, a lot of young men meet the perfect woman between 20 to 27, around there. Yeah, to stretch it, but it's because you're so confused, or you want to eat from every plate, or you don't see it.
Yeah,
and I think even I, looking back, I think I had a couple potentials, but like I was in my Tupac era.
Yeah.
What do you think it is for you?
I think I've been fortunate.
Yeah.
I'm currently in a relationship with an amazing woman. So, God allowing, I would like it to end in marriage.
Wow.
But yeah, I do think it's something that a lot of men would need to be aware of. Are they giving up too soon? Is this person? No, I think the issue is men also looking for perfection. I don't think you're going to find someone who ticks all your boxes. Of course, have your non-negotiables, have things that would be nice to have, and then see how you relate with the person. And then be slow to anger and to react. I think with those, you'd be well suited to finding a partner.
I like now that you've brought the aspect of partner, because before you've been talking about wife, now you're talking about partner. What's the difference?
Actually, no, I think it's the same thing. You should see your wife as being
your partner,
your long-term partner, because this is someone you're going to do life with. Beauty, what does the Bible say? Beauty is fleeting and charm is deceitful. So don't also make long-term decisions for short-term gain. Don't see this babe looking cute. Of course, go for someone you're attracted to.
Yeah.
But don't now make long-term commitments based off of something that's that superficial. See and try and identify someone you can actually do life with, someone you'd be happy with them being the mother of your children, someone you can introduce into your family, all those things.
I think for me, yes, your wife can be your partner, but I always see a different. A wife, I think, is maybe someone that you're bound to by marriage sometimes, but a partner is someone that you're doing life with together, because I know life is not always easy. It has its ups and downs, And for example, if you have a business partner, the day that you're not making profit, you're not automatically leaving each other. You're trying to fight next year,
Yeah.
So that's how, for me, I think I look at it, because
like a life partner, someone that you're actually going to be doing this journey with.
Because honestly, I think there's a lot of people you could get married to. It's just, are you going to stay forever, Because even the other day, my auntie was asking me the same question. It's like, you're really becoming old. Your birthday's in a few days, man. When are you bringing for us? 30. Yeah, when are you bringing for us someone, Yeah. I told her, the child is easy to get. It's the wife that's harder.
We can solve that problem quickly,
the child we can solve. It's the wife we can't solve. Yeah.
Actually, I think you've raised a good point.
Yeah.
And it also ties in with my definition of love.
Yeah.
Because I think people and society has been have believed a lie, that love is just a feeling. So the definition I have for love, it's actually by a pastor called Vodi Bokam. He says, love is an act of the will, supported by emotion, that leads to action on behalf of its object. So I think a few key points there. Act of the will. So it's a choice first. It's not an emotion. You're not gonna love this person depending on how you feel about them, but supported by emotion. So emotion is still there. And then it leads to action. It changes the way you act, the way you think about this person in relation to, whoever you say you love.
No, but I think it's true because even when I look at it sometimes, my brothers can piss me the hell off.
Yes.
But the girl come, bro, could I do this? And I'm so upset still.
You're still vexed,
But I say, yeah. And I'm like, if you can actually love someone in that capacity, then you have the capacity, to be with them. I think one of the things you mentioned in the start was you talked about friendship and how important it is to have, the right friends, and especially as men, to have other like-minded men as friends. Do you have something of the sort? How do you build something like that?
Yeah.
And, what's your advice to men looking for something like that as well?
Okay. So one of the things that helped me personally in developing close-knit male friendships was doing this Man Enough course. I think it's by Nairobi Chapel. It was, I think, 10 weeks. But the key takeaway was, one, allowing yourself to be vulnerable in front of other men. It's not something that comes naturally, given your upbringing and what you've been told, But if you're able to find people that you can trust, and I think that's also a big one, you then are able to confide in them. You're able to lean on them when times get rough. So one of the things we do, I mentioned the Bible study, but another thing we also do is try and have a guys' night once a week or once every 2 weeks. And it's not the typical guys' night where you're going to the club and popping.
But girls are about to come at us on this podcast.
No, it's a simple guys' night. Like maybe guys will come to my apartment. We'll play PlayStation or we'll play poker. If there's alcohol, very minimal. Like that's not the idea. We'll then just have a good time, and then for the last 30 minutes, we will then go around and have guys just speak, like open-ended question, where you at? It can be as short or as long as you'd want, but it also gives now your close guy friends a window to speak about what's going on. And they can ask deeper questions should you want to, but it needs to be something like that, where there's just an avenue to speak about your feelings or things you're dealing with should you need to.
I think it's important, like even when I look at it, there's usually a photo of the president that goes around where he's with like 5 of his homies that they say are still around him and still support him, and until today. So, and I think there are also some conversations as men we can't have with women.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to have with your girlfriend.
Even with your girlfriend or your wife, because it might also look like some sort of weakness or something. Yeah. So it's important, to have it with other men. So to someone listening to this, how do they build such a community, or how do they join such a community? Because I'm guessing for you, it's friends that you've known. So for anyone to come might be hard for them. So what would be your suggestion?
What I'd say is take that active role. You can be someone who does now create that environment for guys around you. Look for like-minded men, as you said. One good way to think about it, there's in the Bible, there's these 4 men who dropped a man on a stretcher to Jesus who needed to be healed. So who are your stretcher bearers? Find 4 men who would also lead you closer to God. So look for people with like-minded beliefs, people who you genuinely respect how they live their life, and then seek to build a friendship with them. I think most people also are looking for good friendships and intentional friendships. So it just takes some proactivity on your part. But I think it's something that is easily achievable.
Okay. I think as we come to the end of this podcast, is there anything that you'd have wanted me to ask you that I didn't get the chance to ask you?
I think we've touched on everything. It's been a really good chat.
Yeah.
I think there's more. There's obviously a lot more that could have been discussed.
Yes.
But that could be for follow-on episodes.
No, I plan to have you back. Yeah. And maybe also one thing I'd like to ask you, is there anything you'd have liked to ask me as well?
I think for now, nothing comes to mind, but we can even chat after this.
Yes. Yeah. So what's your last words for the audience listening to this? What's your party shot?
Okay, I think for young men, I think have a North Star, have something you're aiming towards. So for me, like I said, that would be 1 Timothy chapter 3. Read it for yourself, see what it entails, and then seek after that actively. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect or that every day you'll be achieving or living up to that standard, but it doesn't mean you stop. So make sure you still have that North Star.
The guidance.
Yeah.
Okay. David, thank you so much for gracing our presence, for blessing this podcast, for coming and having a conversation with us. We really appreciate you, bro. And we wish you all the best. We hope you'll be coming for a wedding soon.
No.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Anyways, to those of you listening at home, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Remember, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, just to kick it is a blessing. Goodbye.